All right, welcome into another episode of the Hawk's Nest of Peak Performers. I am Ryan, the Rye Bread Hawks, and this is a podcast where we gather together high performers in their various fields, and we just basically have some conversations that seek to empower people to pursue their passions. Today's guest, we have Dale Forward over here. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, man. It's good. The day's good. It's a nice, warm, sunny day here, and I'm feeling good.
Yeah, live from Australia. So I know I'm going to get some people in different time zones, and you're just about as different time zone as can be. It's about
Yeah,
8:45 at night for me. It's
yeah. It's like
nighttime,
nearly 2 in the afternoon here,
2 in the afternoon.
and
Nice.
I'm probably a day ahead of you too. This is Tuesday for me.
Oh wow, it's already
Yeah,
Tuesday. We're kind of time traveling here.
yeah,
Can
yeah,
you tell me what Tuesday is going to be like for me?
yeah. About the same as Monday, pretty much. Yeah,
About
yeah.
the same. Nice. Well, before we get too deep into here, just tell our listeners about you, man. Who is Dale?
All right. Well, so I'm an artist pretty much. That's like most of my day.
Mm-hmm.
I've been an artist all my life. Like I started as doing drawing, doing like
Mm-hmm.
pen drawings and stuff.
Right.
Usually like dark fantasy style sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then through that I started to make some books. I made some comic books that there were some that used red and blue glasses so that you could like close one eye and
Mm.
swap eyes, and there'd be two images then on the page. So I could create like some cool stories and stuff with that.
Oh,
And
cool.
that like I started selling that online, and that was my first sort of major step in thinking, wow, I could actually make some money as an artist, like
Mm.
legit. And but like and so that taught me heaps about business.
Right.
And then I started looking into all different types of businesses that I could do with my art. I made also like an adult like content sort of shirt design stuff where there was and I'm wearing one of the shirts right now where
Oh,
basically you look
nice.
at it and yeah, hang on. So you
Yeah.
look at it and it doesn't really look like much when you're looking at it. But
Right.
then when you're putting on red glasses, it'll like show like pornographic like sexual images and stuff underneath,
Oh,
which can be
nice.
kind of cool. And so I've
Yeah.
been into all like the legal sort of stuff of that too, and like that sort of business.
Yeah.
And then like because of my art, I also explored augmented reality. So I made a deck of augmented reality tarot cards,
Hmm.
and because of that, I was mucking around with 3D programs. And because of the art style that I was doing, people were saying I should check out NFTs.
Right.
And so I started exploring that, and that's been having some success. So now I've just been putting all my time into that basically.
Yeah.
I'm building my collection called Algo Gods because it's on Algorand,
Mhm.
which is I don't know how familiar people are that are watching, but that's a cryptocurrency. And so then I'm selling my stuff through that, making a collection of my art, all like each one's handmade using either 3D programs or hand drawn, and just trying to like learn about the NFT space, build my skills up, and like make a bit of money if I can too. And
Yeah.
so that's sort of where I'm at right now. I'm just trying to make some stuff that I can, hopefully live off that's like viable, but
Right.
also stuff that like I have fun doing too, that people enjoy. And
Exactly.
yeah, finding that balance is harder than I thought. Like doing stuff you enjoy, but then also that makes you money. Like
Yeah.
it's hard sometimes. So, yeah, but yeah, love it.
Yeah, it's rough out there, and that's kind of what the theme of this podcast about, just trying to help people find what they love and be able to do it like for a living. I mean, so many people out there like they work a job and you have to make money. It's a fact of life. It's a
Yeah,
fact of life. And most people I think get stuck in kind of doing something for a living that they don't like.
yeah,
And don't really even try to go. I think a lot of times it takes like it's such an investment, you don't make anything for so long off of it.
yeah.
It's easier you just go get a job, and maybe it's a dead end job, or maybe you can make money off of it and hate it, but it's I don't want to call it the easy way out, but it kind of is.
Well, yeah, like yeah, man, this sort of stuff I've thought so much about. Where, I think a lot of people push other people to get a job because it's consistent. Like,
Right.
like parents and TV shows and the government and all that. They push it saying, get a job because then you'll be earning this amount of money and
Right.
you will know that you get that if you can maintain that job. But
Yeah.
when you start in your own business, no matter what it is, like being an entrepreneur, like you can never be sure that you're getting that amount because you're paying yourself.
Yeah.
Or like in a way, it's the community that's paying you, or like maybe big companies.
Yeah.
And it depends on what industry you go into, because if you were like a tradie, then you could probably be pretty happy that you're gonna find work if you're just doing the basic bare minimum stuff. But when you're getting into the creative arts, where everything's a bit subjective,
Yeah.
and in a way, it's not needed, like it's not an essential service sort of thing,
Yeah.
then yeah, like, how do you know if it's gonna work or not? And that I
Hmm.
think is, the true struggle of the artist and, like, the business owner is, like, you could do heaps of market research, and you
Right.
could figure out what the highest chance of success is, and that's something
Hmm.
that I try and think a lot about is, what has the highest chance of success more than
Hmm.
anything else? Like, because then, because you'll have thousands of ideas, but you're like, all right, what do I think is going to be the easiest and the best one to work? Like, and I'll just do that one
Hmm.
first.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and being an artist, man, like, because I was thinking just yesterday, man, like this was a big thing for me, a big sort of breakthrough in me understanding my head was
Yeah.
that I started doing art because I just loved it. Like I was just drawing,
Yeah.
just because I thought, yeah, fuck yeah, like this is mad, you know?
Yeah.
And then people naturally will come up and say, hey Dale, like have you ever thought about maybe doing like a bigger artwork for my wall, or like
Hmm.
maybe a comic book or something to sell a book? And then same with NFTs. I was suggested to do NFTs. And but then what happened was I was getting caught up in it and I was like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm an NFT artist now. Like I've got to make some money and stuff from this. Like, and you start putting expectations on yourself about
Right.
what you think you should be at, like
Mm.
what level you should be at and how much money you should be making. But if it started from you having fun, now you've sort of lost that a little bit because you're trying to make sure that you do all the things that work. But, and that's where, like, I had to come back and realize that my best artworks are usually, like, the stuff that I do spontaneously. They're
Right.
the ones because, it has life, and I was trying to figure out what the difference is between, the stuff that was planned and the unplanned stuff. And the planned stuff, it was functional art sort of thing, like, it
Right.
worked. You knew what it was look like trying to go for. But then the spontaneous stuff, like, I was trying to enjoy the process and the visual experience. I didn't have an end goal other than
Hmm.
to enjoy myself, and
Right.
so it embeds it in the whole thing. And so, when, like, I was doing the functional stuff, I was thinking about the business side of things,
Right.
and that's always the thing that gets me caught up because in a business, like, people are checking in on numbers. They want research, they want consistency and stuff. But when you go to art, like the art side, it's flowing and it's playful. There's no rules, like, and you might just not be vibing that day, and you might be
Yeah.
like, yeah. And so, like, I was judging myself in a more business sense because I was like, I need to make this sort of amount if I wanted to live off it and everything.
Right.
But, and that's where I had to take a big step back and think, what's my long-term goals? Like, ignoring the amount of money, like, what do I want to produce with my art? And so I had to kind of
Right.
think, yeah, like I want to make like, something that represents me, something that gives me energy, something that makes me happy.
Hmm.
And that luckily is what other people are into too. And
Right.
so then it's like just basic business stuff where it's like, how do I tell those people that this exists? And how do I make it accessible and like so it's not overpriced and
Hmm.
people respect it and stuff. But but yeah, man, like that whole idea though of like the struggle when you're an artist trying to make a name for yourself and everything is like you see so much competition and you think that I need to match what they're doing, but art is like it's you expressing yourself. And
Right.
the the hard part, the most brutal part is being honest with yourself and saying, hey, sometimes like, people might not be vibing with my stuff. that it might not sell for that amount because maybe not because of the art, but just the nature of the space that it's in, or it might be the art. And like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing is like you always will be learning with the art sort of side of things. And that's where once I took a bit of a step back and I was just like, all right, let's not worry too much about the money side of things. Let's think about living a life because that's really the end goal of getting the
Yeah.
money. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's cut out the
Right.
middleman. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, and so now I feel like in a clearer headspace because I'm just let's play, be spontaneous with my art. Let's not judge it too heavily. Let's just enjoy it and we'll price it to be accessible to people.
Right.
Like because I'd much like the end goal really is to have people owning my artworks. Like
Right.
it's not so much about earning all the money that I can get from it.
Right.
Because that hopefully could come later once there's more demand and everything. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
much rather have owners than the sales right now. And that's the
Yeah.
brutal part of starting an art business is that um, you want to make money from it. And
Right.
certain businesses will do well early on and others won't do well. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's like knowing that type of business. But when it's just given out and you actually start moving it, doesn't matter what price it is, you've proved that your artwork is worth at least that much. Like that's that's the amount that it has sold for, and you're like, all right, I've got
Mm.
some sort of ballpark. Where instead, if you're trying to price it compared to what you think it's worth or how other people are pricing it, that's when it gets a bit different because you think, is mine actually the same? It's and sorry, I don't mean to ramble all on about it, but this is what I've been thinking about. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah,
It's
it's
such like a balancing act because to an
yeah,
extent, in order to really be the best artist in a way that you can be, you really want to focus all your time onto it and you want to do the art. But then you kind of you have to have some business aspect to it because you have to be able to, like you
100%.
said, reach people. You have to sell it so that you can, but you kind of have to maybe ebb back and forth a little bit and find the balance because
Yeah,
yeah, if you go too far into the business side, then yeah, you're just doing what you think people like and you lose your you lose almost like the soul of the art isn't communicated anymore.
yeah, yeah. Like it definitely has a different vibe, sort of thing. And I think like any artist that does want to make money from their art should know about business. They should know
Yeah.
about social media and promotion and stuff. Because to me, like the having like a business name and everything, for me, that's like a part of the artwork, you know?
Right.
If you're really trying to think about the art, like the Twitter post is the artwork as much as like how many likes it has too. And that's
Yeah.
something that you can't even really control, really.
Hmm.
Like, and that's the weird sort of thing where it's like, if you saw a post that had one like, you're gonna think heaps different of it if it had 10,000 likes. And
Yeah.
so that's where it's like you can channel that, and you need to know that that's part of the artwork. Just same as all of Twitter that you don't post in is also a part of that space that you put it up into.
Yeah.
And tax as well. Like that's a part of the art in a way. If you were to really think broadly and be like, okay, if I'm gonna make an artwork, because we know that the price is the artwork too, but then yeah,
Hmm.
you need to think like what's the tax side of things too. Like because and that's where it gets a bit of like a blurry sort of line where it's like it's not the artwork, but
Yeah.
considering it, if you're actually going to make something beautiful, um if your goal is to make it beautiful, then you should be thinking that these people that are seeing the artwork have expectations of what that artwork is.
Right.
And maybe they only think of artworks in a gallery. And so then if it's not in a
Hmm.
gallery, it's not an artwork to them. And
Yeah.
and for you, like if it was a complete artwork, it needs to have all those underlying like tax, legal sort of stuff too. The
Hmm.
stuff that doesn't need to be thought about too much, but you need to be aware of it. And like
Yeah.
and then once you are, you've done it a few times, you're like, oh yeah, that's nothing. I can do that now. And now you actually focus on what you feel the heart of the artwork is. Because
Yeah.
that's like it's like, when you're thinking about a person, you think about their soul. You don't think about their fingernails. but they need
Yeah.
fingernails. Like
Yeah.
they need that to exist.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's that sort of side where I think a lot of artists get caught up in is
Yeah.
all the legal, like the paperwork sort of side. And it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be crazy. Like
Yeah.
Twitter posting doesn't need to be crazy. And my main thing for like trying to improve with all that is like experiment in all the different ways and get all the responses. But the long term thing is trying to just remove all the rubbish. Don't worry so much about
Mm.
improving at all, but just get rid of the shit. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
and the idea is once all that shit bits removed, all that would be left is good stuff. And
Yeah.
so rather than pushing it, it'd just be like remove all the rubbish stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, I like the way that you frame this, because probably one of the biggest issues I think today with I mean almost modern art in general in terms of it being like in the digital world, in the past maybe artists were able to just paint their canvas and put it in a gallery and people will buy it, and probably to an extent this still happens, but
Mm,
it's different now. If you And I think the way you framed it, it's like they don't want to make the community, they don't want to do the Twitter post because that's not the art end. But you're framing it,
mm.
it's like that's art, that's the art too. There's an art
Yeah,
to presenting it the entire time. The post is a part of the art, and in the interactions
yeah.
that you have with people is part of the art. It's
100%.
crazy.
Well, because people like a really simple way to put it is like people say that the artist is also the artwork. And like
Mm.
if I'm a rubbish person, you're gonna not like the artwork as much. Like
Yeah.
and it's the same with like the community. And yeah, because and it doesn't really matter what the audience really thinks deeply of what the artwork is. They know. Like
Hmm.
you know what an artwork is, but maybe you can't describe it perfectly. But when you
Right.
see it, you know it.
Right.
And it's down to the artist to present it in that way.
Right.
Where like and that's why I've been really thinking about how people perceive art, like how they read it and
Hmm.
the type of content, how it's presented to them, because it's a whole experience. Like
Yeah.
I like before I was thinking about how like earlier on where I thought about art where you see it on Twitter first or
Hmm.
whatever, social media or in a gallery, and then you look at the artwork and like you sort of think about it and enjoy it, and that's kind of the end of the experience.
Yeah.
But it is so much broader than that. Like when you think about it a bit more, where you could even say it starts from when you were born, because as you
Mm.
grow up over time, you understand symbols in the world and like
Right.
you start to see beauty in nature and you start to understand what you connect with. Like it could be that you play games or you've read books and you start having nostalgic feelings with this artwork where it reminds you of a time in the past. And then you find this artwork and you connect with it however it is, and maybe you perceive it in a few different ways. Maybe it's more just because it represents a part of you, or maybe you just like the way it looks, or maybe you can think of it more functional, like yeah, it might go in my house somewhere, or
Right.
something like that. And then afterwards, you'll probably end up forgetting about the artwork unless you've bought it and collected it, but it is still a part of your life, and
Yeah.
it's still in your subconscious somewhere, like and so it can make long-term effects to that person. So,
Wow.
the thing that I'm trying to balance is, like, not spending too much time thinking about that because that
Yeah.
can really wrap your head around, but, yeah, just being aware that that exists, that that's
Yeah.
a thing, and so then you could make, like, long-term influences, like, to mass amounts of people through, like, just subtle artworks and stuff. And
Yeah.
it happens, like with subtle, subliminal advertising and stuff too, or like
Hmm.
even, especially with music, like I think that if you think about art, you should definitely like be looking into music too,
Yeah.
because it's all the same principles, like
Oh yeah.
about promotion and like style and all that presentation. And like the thing that people, in say a lot of rap videos or whatever are talking about wealth and money and like women and all that. And that's affecting and influencing the people that listen to it, which is usually like younger people. And
Yeah.
so now there's that sort of movement towards like trying to earn money and riches and stuff. And like but then as well, not every kid listens to that sort of stuff and they're aware of how it affects them. But like, yeah, like as a creator, being aware that you can like heavily influence some people
Yeah.
through making certain artworks,
Mm-hmm.
especially representing the like minority groups too, which I see a lot of that in NFTs and other
Mm-hmm.
artworks, like like black people or like gay people, stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
where just feeling like there's other people out there, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and so you can make a huge positive influence on people.
Yeah.
And, like, a lot of the stuff that I guess try and think about is, like, the banners that people would have in, like, going to wars or whatever. Like, what is on that banner? Like, the
Huh.
thing that would make you
Yeah.
ready for war. Like, and I guess I'm thinking
Huh.
more in, like, a fantasy sort of style thing,
Yeah.
but, like, if you could make an artwork that when people see it, they, like, their blood pumps, like,
Yeah.
and I'm not the type of guy, I guess, to do, like, the racy, controversial sort of stuff, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to tap into your subconscious of, like,
Yeah.
what you remember from
Mm-hmm.
maybe games and books and videos and stuff that you've seen,
Yeah.
and then you compose it in such a way that it reminds you and, like, puts that energy in you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, how I'll go with it, but I'm just gonna try because it helps me, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you heard of Simon Sinek by chance?
No, I haven't, no.
So he's kind of this, he's like an idealist kind of motivational speaker author. So he has this book that I really loved, and it's called Start with Why, right? And he says a lot of
Yeah.
the successful companies are able to do this instead of just having something, and like let's say the iPhone, and it's a great iPhone, everybody loves it.
Mm,
But they don't start with that, right? Like, hey, I've got
mm,
this great iPhone, want to buy it? They start with, I want to live in a world where everybody has access to information.
mm,
And if you find that why, then people are a lot more willing to listen to you. And it's
yeah.
almost like the battle thing. Like they see it
Mm.
before you even explain it.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's, a big struggle for artists
Mm-hmm.
because they, like, as I was saying before, how what an artwork is, but even an artist, I think, doesn't fully know why they love to do what they do.
Right.
Like, they just love doing it, they love making cool art. But to try and describe, like, the word utility's flown around a fair bit in NFTs. It's like,
Yeah.
what is the utility of art? We all know it's got a purpose, but it's hard to put into words. And the things, like, that have come up for me for it is that it can represent a culture, like, it can
Yeah.
represent you. It can, be, like, a way to support creativity, like, so that you could buy an artwork, but I think, yeah, the main thing is that it's like trying to capture nature, and make something more beautiful than what nature is, or trying
Yeah.
to capture that feeling that we feel, like, say when we're in love or whatever, and we've like crystallized it in the world. And that's where, yeah, I think a lot of artists really struggle with understanding the why, because once you know the why, then you know how to promote it a whole lot more.
Exactly.
Um, and
Yeah.
the weird thing though with art is it can just promote itself if it's good. Like, you could
Mm-hmm.
post it up somewhere, not say anything about it, and people will be like, "Yeah, yeah, that's mad." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that's where I think thinking long term about a business in art, it's hard to wrap your head around why people collect,
Yeah.
because I try and ask everybody and there's all little different reasons. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
just say, like, I don't know, I just liked it. I just thought it was mad. And then other people can describe perfectly every little detail that they loved in it.
Yeah.
And because it's all subjective, because it's all about their history, it's
Yeah.
so hard to control. And that's
Yeah.
why, yeah, there's a
And
lot of
most people can't describe it. That's why,
yeah.
like, if you ask someone why they like an iPhone, then they're going to tell you things about the features, but other phones have those same features. There's something about the iPhone's vision that they're communicating
Mm,
in that. And usually it goes beyond that particular thing. So even in art,
yeah.
it's like why? what's your why? Like, what is your worldview almost in a way?
Yeah, and I think that's where the PFP NFTs have become really sort of, I guess, big and interesting because you wear them like a badge to show that you're a part of a certain culture.
Right.
Like, and that I think is a major part of art, where you'd see people having artworks up on their walls, and if you knew the artist that created it, you'd be like, oh, you're part of that circle. Like,
Right.
or like you support that, or maybe you have that much money, or that sort of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And so I think like interacting with art is like interacting with culture, like music and
Right.
stuff too. Like it tells people who you are before, like, and it
Mm-hmm.
explains it better than what you could probably do.
Right.
Um, and that's I think why PFPs are huge because
Mm-hmm.
bored apes. If I see a person with bored ape, I'm like, oh right, you probably spent a bit of money on that. Like you
Yeah,
must
yeah.
be a
It's a
baller or
status
whatever.
symbol.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
exactly.
it. I try when people don't understand NFTs. To me, I tell them, "Do you like Louis Vuitton? Yeah.
Hmm.
Would you rather get a fake one or a real one? Oh, get a real one. Well, yeah, you
Yeah,
can download that picture and have a fake one, but you want the
yeah,
real Louis Vuitton. That's what
yeah,
this is all about.
yeah. Yeah,
To a
and like,
point.
and then there's layers in there as well of like,
Yeah.
but yeah, like it is sort of like that. Um, and I think though the difference is with the one of one artworks that I do is
Hmm.
it's harder to flaunt the artworks, at least at the
Yeah.
moment. PFPs are like instantly you show your favorite one.
Yeah.
But then you see a person that has a PFP and you're still I don't know how many other ones they have. Like maybe that's the only one that they have, or maybe they have thousands.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that the community will build around this sort of culture.
Hmm.
Because people are like, yep, we love the one of ones,
Yeah.
but what are we gonna do with it? Like
Yeah.
and then that's where I think there's be more metaverse stuff. There'll be more like digital frames that connect to Wi-Fi and all that.
Hmm.
And that's where I think utilities become really important because it connects to the real world a whole lot more. Like
Hmm.
with environmental stuff, like planting trees or games and interactivity
Yeah.
where the yeah, like that's where the one of one artwork stuff to me I still have in the back of my head of like, how long is this gonna last? Like, is this gonna last and keep going? Like, because it is just buying JPEGs. Like, I get it, I
Yeah.
understand why, but like, do will people always think this way? And I
Yeah.
guess it makes me think though back to the original sort of thing where people were just buying artworks um to have in their home. And
Hmm.
it's like, I guess there's something about it where it's like, we probably have done this for millennia where like we collected cool rocks, and
Yeah.
like we just want to keep that cool rock. Like, and that
Hmm.
I think is really what it is. And it's like we'll try and show people, but it's more that internal ownership. Like we
Hmm.
know that we have it. We don't always need to flaunt it off. Like it's
Yeah.
like say living here, I've just moved into this place with my partner and like she's got all like little cool trinkets and stuff around. And we don't sit there and look at it every day.
Yeah.
We don't go around showing everybody, but there's something about that it's just you. Like that the wallet that you have digitally, that's you. Like
Hmm.
you put things in there that is you. And so
Yeah.
then, like, it sort of becomes your space, even though you
Yeah.
don't even go in there, you know?
Yeah. That is a trip. I mean, it's like, I don't know, is there some type of like inherent like need to collect in us or something? I
Oh,
don't know.
100% they would be. Like, because otherwise, we'd all be wearing the same sort of clothes. Like, we'd all be in the same looking houses and stuff, I reckon. Like, it's because we are all individuals and we want to find and bring things that are us closer to us.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like how, people will look around and have shells, collect shells from the beach. I think there's some sort of thing where we want to collect things that we find valuable and hold on to
Right.
them. And because there's that idea, I think, too, of like that's hard for certain people is to see something beautiful and not want to own it. Like
Right.
like you see a beautiful picture of a landscape, like you see a landscape in real life and you want to take a picture of it. You're
Yeah.
probably never going to look at that photo ever again, but
Yeah.
there's something about trying to own it,
Yeah.
like that we want to have that. And birds do it, monkeys do it and all that too, like having their tool, and having their thing that it's documenting our life. And that's why I think social media is so big, because we want to post everything that we do, like,
Yeah.
because then it makes it real, and it makes it valuable. Like that's where, like, there's the NFT things where we need that proof of ownership. If everybody
Hmm.
was cool and everybody was just like, "Yeah, bro, that guy owns it, sure, whatever," like,
Yeah.
then it'd be fine, but we need the proof of ownership. Like, we need to say, "Yes, that guy actually does own it," because like, I can't just send you a JPEG and then tell everybody I know that you own it, because
Yeah.
people, "What do you mean? I can just copy that off him." Like,
Yeah.
and and that's the weird thing, man. And that's where I think there's always gonna be that sort of stuff, but, of, like, collecting. And when then it comes down to the artist, it's about presenting it, in such a way that, um, it's got all its edges, where it's defined. Like,
Mm.
it's like if you were to see a half broken shell, you probably wouldn't collect it. But
Right.
if you see a full pristine shell, you're like, "Yep, that's the full experience. I've got it now."
Mm.
And, that's where I think a lot of artists struggle too when they come into the NFT game. There's like, and sort of same with me, where I was doing generative PFP projects,
Hmm.
and like they'd sell, but then people would be like, "What's the utility? Like, what are you gonna do with them now? We've all got these pieces." Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Well, it was meant to be just for the art."
Yeah.
But there's this unexpected thing that I found, is that people that buy generative pieces, they expect that they're gonna be used for something more. Like,
Yeah.
it's a bit, if it's just the one of one piece, they're like, "Yep, that's the full thing. I don't really care much about anything else. Like, that's it."
Right.
And so that's where a lot of artists come in, maybe making a generative collection just for art. But now, because the culture is changing a bit, like the PFP is the utility in the
Right.
base of the thing, but people are like, we want to build a community here, and
Hmm.
we want to like represent this sort of thing. And what is there to do with this now? Like, is it all
Yeah.
just hanging out? Like, are we
Yeah.
all just chilling here? And for a lot of people, that's not enough. Like, they
Yeah.
want some sort of game. Like, and certain people like define utility differently. Where some people will be like, "Yep, giveaways, that's cool. That's a good utility." Where others are like, "No, that should just be expected. Like,
Yeah.
it's a common
Yeah.
thing."
And it's
And
it's it's funny because it's like that. I think for the generative and the profile pictures, it's like they have to stand apart, right? I mean,
yeah,
every so much of it just looks exactly the same, but you got a different animal in there. Radioactive, oh, that's one of the rarest ones.
yeah,
Throw some unicorn horns on a few. So utility is the only way to make them stand out and make me want. But I think in yours and being one of the few that's like pure art, like you line that up next to something. There's nothing else like that. So
yeah.
it's different.
Well, and I think that, people buying generative collection stuff compared to one of ones, it's a different culture too. Where I
Yeah.
think, people that they buy it like in a shuffle, keep them on buying that button, it's a casino style buying.
Hmm.
And they're
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I wanna get the rarest, I wanna make money from this."
Right.
And, I hear a lot of that. And then with the one of one pieces, I hear a lot of people saying, "I bought it because it was, like, meaningful to me." Like, I loved
Right.
what the artist was doing, And a lot of them say, "Yeah, I'm probably gonna hold on to this just forever." Like, I'm not
Yeah.
planning on selling it. Like, one guy was saying that I probably will sell the piece that I'll be holding on to, like, for, like, 5 years, and I wouldn't consider that a flip. Like, that would
Yeah.
just be sale, basically, like, and,
Right.
it's time for it to move on, sort of thing. It was
Yeah.
never really to make the money from it. And that's where, it was really confusing for me for a while, because, in, like, the Algorand space, I was one of the only one of one artists
Right.
surrounded by generative PFP collectors, and
Yeah.
like that sort of thing. And I was thinking, why are people like, I know people are buying my stuff, but I don't really know why. Like, because
Yeah.
I want to be able to lean into that. And like,
Mm,
once I know why, then I can just go gung ho in it. And yeah, it's such a different sort of culture. Um, but yeah, and that's where I think a lot of artists get caught up in it, because a lot of them are talking to
mm-hmm.
generative casino style PFP collectors, and they're
Yeah.
like, why am like they're trying to make it for those people. And in like business and art, they say that know your target market, because
Yeah.
if you're starting to promote to the wrong target market, it's not just like you're wasting your time putting the energy into it. You like getting wrong research info. Like you're
Yeah.
talking, and they'll be like, "Oh no, you got to add utility. You should make it this way and that way." And I'm like, God damn, like, do I have to do all that now, like, to make this worth it? But
Yeah. And that's where you got to that's where some of that balance comes in, right? Like, yeah,
yeah,
and I think some of them, some people are going to start getting disillusioned, even artists, where they're leaning in to something that they really don't want to do. They're just doing
yeah,
it because they feel that's what they have to. And, their passion is going to go away. Where it's like lean
yeah,
in to your stuff and find that audience that jives with you,
yeah,
rather than
exactly.
clashes.
Yeah, and I think too, like, the if you were to lean into the utility side, if you did it well, you're probably gonna have more success. Like,
Hmm.
but then it is balancing that with your own lifestyle too. Maybe you don't have enough time, or
Yeah.
maybe it's just not true to you and you will just do it just to get it done, and it's not like an enjoyable sort of thing. It's not made to be enjoyable for the people too. It's just there. And and so then the people that go against that need to sort of be honest with themselves, saying, "All right, it might not be as successful then as those other people that are doing that stuff.
Right.
So I need to prepare for that. Like I need to expect it to not sell as high as the other pieces, because
Yeah.
like we're all selling NFTs, but they're not selling the same ones that I'm selling, and so and
No.
their community and culture is completely different. So
Yeah.
even though it's all the same currency, it's completely different business and everything. And
Exactly.
that was the big struggle for me to try and wrap my head around, of like I'm doing something completely different to them, and so their research and their info is not going to match up with mine. Like
Right.
I've got to be aware that they exist and like the things that they do well and stuff, because I could try and lean into a little bit with like their stuff, like the type of art, like how they promote and all that. Maybe even like connecting with them and like
Right.
hooking up with their discords or whatever, or like their groups. But but yeah, I needed to figure out why mine was valuable.
Hmm.
And for me, I sort of tried to, it took me ages because it wasn't like a thing that you could easily write down saying that, yeah, it's a game, or like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to earn you money. It was like, no, this is a cultural thing. Like, I'm trying
Yeah.
to represent, what I enjoy. And what I enjoy is like beauty and art and stuff and having fun.
Yeah.
And people wanted to collect that, I think because it represents them, like, and I saw you picked up one of my pieces
Oh yeah.
recently. Yeah,
Yeah. I got the wow, why am I forgetting his name? The acid
Al
guy.
Albert
Ho-
Hoffman.
Hoffman. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I just saw it's one of those things. Sometimes you just see the piece, it speaks to me. It's just this eclectic piece about a guy who discovered that there in his own way that there are multiple realities and multiple ways of
yeah,
seeing reality. I mean, subjectivity, man. And boom, I saw that you posted it. I was like crossing my fingers it didn't sell because sometimes it's hit and miss and when how quick and it was still there. So yeah, I got that. And I'm like, I'm not gonna buy anything else because I'm trying to save for this other end of like the casino style so
yeah,
I can try to make some money too. I think I am of course in it for both reasons. I'm trying to make money, but I mean I do feel like I'm an artist myself, I mean not a very good one. But I'm an artist so I can appreciate it. So I look at pieces a little differently than some. There are stuff that
yeah,
I just want to have for myself
yeah,
in that regard.
yeah.
Yeah.
and I think that, like, hearing you talking about, like, collecting my piece too, it's, it really is that different thing where, when you bought that piece, I think there wasn't much thought in the general sense of the big collection. Like,
Yeah.
that wasn't the major part of that choice, but when you
Hmm.
go on with the casino style, you're like, "What's the whole collection gonna be? What's the amount that's there? What's their roadmap?" Where it's like, just for you, you're like, "Yeah, man, that's like, that's what I want," you know? Like,
Yep.
just that. I don't care if it's in some weird sort of collection. You know me, you
Yeah.
know I'm probably gonna do, like, a cool collection overall.
Hmm.
And that Algo Gods collection is a bit messy. If you look at the early stuff, there's some weird experiments in there, and it's like, it's not a clean cut sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
that's the
that's
best part about it. It's
yeah.
like it's not like some of this stuff is like overly calculated and why it's going to die. You know, you have to be willing to take chances, and instead of maybe one piece dies that didn't work out, you know, on
Mm,
this end, then the whole thing's going to die now because they were too
yeah.
scared to take those chances early.
Yeah, and, like, that's where some of the pieces in there were so experimental, like, and now I know, like, what worked and what didn't really, like, and so now I
Hmm.
don't need to waste my time doing some of that weird stuff.
Yeah.
But I still have the skills too if I really needed to, like,
Yeah.
and it's like, it's meant to be in a way a bit of a document for other NFT artists to, like, look at and see the different things that you can do, and,
Right.
like, then, like, think, "Oh, you know, like, why'd they do this or that?" And
Hmm.
seeing the progress over time. And,
Yeah.
yeah, because once I, like, became more and more free, then I felt like I could kinda just do anything then, like,
Yeah.
because I would know if it was complete or not,
Right.
rather than, like, me trying to figure out what you think is a complete artwork. I'm just like, "Yeah, I know. It's
Yeah.
just an NFT," like, and then I put it up for a price, and then if you want it, you want it, you know? Like, it's not some crazy calculations and equations and stuff. It's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
if you want the artwork, and I do need to think of the collection as a whole, and, like, simply put, it's just like, a collection of, like, godlike artworks, usually. Sometimes I,
Hmm.
like, I forget about that it's meant to be about gods. But yeah, most of the time it's just that, and it's meant to be cool art, and it's, like, showing me progressing and trying to get better as an artist, and
Yeah.
you'll see that, like, the clumps where I've thought about a certain thing, and then I've, like, forgotten certain stuff and then remembered it, and, yeah, and it's just, like, the journey, and so
Yeah.
it's like the early days journey before, like, I made a post the other day saying it's the collection before the collection.
Hmm.
Like, once I figure out what I'm doing, then the next one should be clean and cut, like, it should be good. And,
Yeah.
and yeah, and that's what I think, like, a lot of one-of-one artists could probably start out as, like, not boxing themselves up too early, saying that I'm gonna do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's, I think that's part of the beauty in it is it's not clean and cut. You know, I mean, everyone tries so hard. Nothing's ever going to be that way, you know, so just kind of
Mm.
embrace it.
Yeah, yeah. And, like, I kinda like making artworks that aren't clean cut too, and still,
Yeah.
like, selling them in a way because it's the idea. It's
Hmm.
not about perfection, and, like, I sold one for 1,000 algo, and I can
Hmm.
point out all the little things that are like, messing up with that, because
Yeah.
I kinda just tried to make my vision rather
Yeah.
than making it all clean and perfect,
Right.
and so then, like, it can really go against when people are saying, "Oh, there was, like, clipping in the 3D art, you know, that people want quality and everything," and it's like, I don't think people really want true quality of perfection. They want
No,
something to, like, in one of one, they want something that represents what they were thinking, like, they
exactly.
and, like,
Yeah.
that's where, like, some of the rubbish sketches of old school artists are amazing because it's like, it's what it represents, like,
Yeah.
it's not at all about the quality of how it was drawn, like, that's
Yeah.
not what people are interested in all the time, like,
Yeah, I mean, look at it. A lot of the NFT art is like pixel art, so like there's not looking for like that quality in certain ways. I mean, the people that do come to yours, I think the intricacy is one thing that people
yeah,
appreciate. I'm sure, including myself.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's not about perfection. I'm sure even the best artists out there look at theirs and are going to point out little little things on
Yeah.
it, you know?
Well, like a part of it too, I think, is it's like when you can see the brush strokes on a painting. Like
Mm,
you know that it was made by a human then because you're like,
right.
oh, that guy messed it up a little bit. Like
Yeah.
yeah, but then like if you see a little mess up in like, the Sistine Chapel, you're not like, oh, he's an amateur. You're like,
Yeah.
wow, this was done by a human. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, and that's kind of what I like doing sometimes is like not zooming in too much when I release
Right.
something. Just
Yeah.
let it have a few mistakes to prove that, yeah, that was made by a human. Like, especially with like all the AI art coming up now,
Yeah.
where people are making amazing stuff at the click of a button.
Hmm.
Um, but I like the imperfections. Like
Yeah.
when I see that sort of stuff, I think like it's a bit too samey, like
Yeah.
the you didn't have the thought in it really. Like you did, but you didn't compose it yourself. Like I still find value in it in that AI.
Right.
I think it's got great stuff for doing concept art for
Right.
people that can't make art and they're like, this is what I was thinking about or whatever.
Oh, like me.
Um, yeah, yeah, no, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, from an artist point of view, I wouldn't enjoy doing that. That's not my creative process. I
Yeah.
love like placing something on a page and then making it beautiful with every detail, making
Right.
those mistakes and stuff. And I think that a lot of other people sort of do agree with that, where there was a big time where people didn't think 3D art was art. There's still people that think that too, where they're like,
Mm.
if it was done on a computer, nah, it's not art. I need it painted and hand drawn, like
Yeah.
that art. And yeah, and that's where I think the AI stuff is so new, where people haven't seen enough yet that they actually connect with, and that has been presented meaningfully. That
Yeah.
that yeah, they haven't formed that like belief yet.
Wow. Yeah, and art is such a, I mean, in its own, it's an abstract concept. I'm also like big into video games, and there's a debate for a while: are video games art? And
Yeah,
some developers themselves that are making the games, no, this is not art. I'm not
yeah,
making art. I'm making a game. And others are like, yes. And you can kind of see the difference in those. I mean, some games I've played, I'm like, this is a masterpiece of art. You know?
yeah. Well, yeah, because I guess like for me, art's always been about expression.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that it depends on what it's expressing is how you connect with it. Like, I could do a drawing and it's like a little stick figure, and you're like, yeah, that's art because you connect with it and be like, yeah, it's expressing, yourself and it's fun and all that. But then if I was like a washing machine, you'd be like, no, like, but then a person that was like an engineer or something would be like, yeah, that's a work of art. Like, that was made to perfection. Like, you can see that
Yes.
the company's plans were put in, like, that's how they make that stuff. And,
Wow. Yeah.
and then you could even say the same about plants and trees, like, is that art? And really, I think that it's because people don't think there's a creator and,
Hmm.
with that or some people do, but I really think that nature is like the fractal or like the genes or DNA and stuff in there could be called the creator and, uh
Hmm.
that helps us because it's like I connect with it and I can sort of if my mind's right, I can see how it was put together by like the genes and the chemicals in it, you know? And
Hmm.
and that's where I think it's like it depends on how you actually view it. Where other days I'll be like, yeah, it's just a tree. Like that's not art. I'm making art.
Yeah.
Like, and so
Yeah.
it's always gonna be blurry because,
Yeah.
like, art's always subjective. It's the same as if you were to, say, "Is the frame around the artwork the artwork?" And if it
Hmm.
is the wall the artwork too then? Like, at what point do you define, like, the edge of the artwork? Because
Wow.
that's just the thing, man, like and that's
That's a
the
trip.
nature of words too. Like, that's where I think, the main part is, like, how you know what an artwork is,
Right.
similar to how you know who you are and who I
Hmm.
am.
Right.
But if you were to try and actually define me using like logical words and stuff, you couldn't because it's all blurry. Like
Right.
there's you could say then is like, you are you your fingernail, right? And so then
Yeah.
once you grow out your fingernail and you cut it off and you throw it over there, is that still you or is that just rubbish now? And that's just because words suck. Like
Yeah.
it's and because your sense of things is always a bit wobbly and a bit
Yeah.
blurry.
Yeah, as soon as you put a word to something, you put it in a box. That's why like in psychology, labeling theory itself is huge. And I'm big on in music, in heavy metal, we have all of these subgenres, but as soon as you subgenre your band now, then now you limit that band and it's they're necessary, but limiting at the same time.
Yeah, like I always think of it like it's same with a relationship, I reckon, where
Mm,
you love someone and you're like, yeah, I love them.
right.
And then you both sort of say, "Oh, should we become boyfriend and girlfriend?"
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but we didn't need to define that before this. Maybe we were already.
Right.
We're just saying that so that we can explain to other people what we are. And then,
Yeah.
but the real detriment though is when you define yourself as boyfriend and girlfriend, and you both start expecting what a boyfriend or girlfriend is. And
Right.
and that's something I had to have a big chat with my partner about because it was more like we're not, I guess, just in a relationship. It's us 2 together that are in love, like, that's it,
Yeah.
like, and then we've had to say that this is what it is for other people to understand and for
Mm,
us to, like, talk to each other about it,
yeah.
but really, because we started noticing that we're, like, when you're in a relationship, there's 2 major things that are going on. Like, I'm in a relationship with my partner, and then I'm also just in a relationship with someone. Like,
Right.
I am now taken in a way.
Right.
And the weird thing is because you start expecting how they should act, but really that's because you've defined it, and you shouldn't be defining it like it's the same thing, but it should be that it's both people first, not boyfriend and girlfriend first.
Right.
Um, and yeah, and that's where I think a lot of issues do come up, like say with art too, where they're trying to make a good artwork rather than just letting the artwork speak and tell
Yeah.
you what it is.
Right.
And being in tune with that and actually hearing it and then having the balls to step back and be like, oh yeah, okay, maybe we've made some mistakes. Like maybe
Yeah.
we've gotten in the wrong headspace here and there and trying to refresh, like then yeah, then you can do it. Like
Right.
and yeah, man. But that's where yeah, I think a lot of the generative sort of artworks compared to the one of ones, it can get a bit blurry because I see there's people making one of one artworks but using generative techniques.
Right.
And so that's where like the outsider points, like outsider people are looking at it and they're a bit confused because they don't really know how to define it and react to it.
Yeah.
Where I think really it should just and people are getting more used to it of just reacting internally and just being like, I feel this way, and
Mm-hmm.
rather than being too heavy on all their thoughts,
Right.
just vibing out, man. Like,
Yeah.
and that's where I think a lot of the space is still growing. Like with the AI art too, it's
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, if you have a genuine feeling, like that's the feeling. Like, and it probably will change over time too. Like maybe you'll be more
Right.
open or even more against it or whatever. And it's I think just like recognizing those sort of things is just heaps important for the growth of the space and the growth of people too, of just like not being too strict on anything.
Right. Yeah, and that kind of comes into my last little topic in here just about authenticity. How do you make sure that you keep your authenticity and how important do you think it is for others to be authentic and be their authentic selves?
Oh, well, I guess like in a way you're always authentic. Like you're always being you, whether you like it or not. Like,
Mm,
but and so I think then it comes down to your values. Like,
right.
if you feel like what you're doing is meeting your values of what, like, and and understanding what you value is like a lifelong thing, and it's going to
Right.
change and stuff too. And I think that and because your values will change, each artwork is going to represent something different. And I think that, like, if you were not being authentic, it's probably because you got a reason to be. And like, it might be because maybe you need to make more money, or maybe you like, in a weird case, you need to slightly rip off people to get more. And even though I know that'd be like an unfortunate case, but it's like, hey man, like, if you need to do that, I'm not gonna agree with it, but that's your life. Like,
Right.
you're still being yourself there, like, because your values have changed.
Mm.
And I know when I like sort of start to mess up and do weird artwork or whatever, it's because my focus has changed on what I'm trying to create. And
Mhm.
um and I think, like, you don't know how to be authentic until you've like actually figured out what is authentic to you, like what you value, what you want to produce. And
Right.
and then, it will just become your lifestyle and stuff. Like, because if you don't value people, if you don't value the quality of your work,
Right.
then in a way it's authentic to you. Like, that's what you think it is.
Yeah.
Is
That's a
that
good
sort of
point.
like, is that kind
Yeah.
of answering your question? I don't know.
Yeah, I've never thought of it that way, you know. I mean, I guess that's true, you know. I think from what I found in these conversations, usually when I talk about this, is a lot of people feel like they need to maybe hide a certain part of themselves or version of themselves, or be someone who um be someone externally that they aren't internally, because of these, I think, even because of some of these definitions that we talk about, some of the words and the way we define things, where we might have like a definitional clashing. Like I may define something internally different than what I think society defines as externally, so I will try to conform to the external definition of that.
Yeah, well, I guess it comes down to your end goal. Like,
Yeah.
because it's like, I could probably post on Twitter every hour about my thoughts. And
Yeah.
like, and that will affect me negatively, like, so I'm not going to do that. And so I think it's just you working back from your goal, like knowing the why sort of thing of
Hmm.
what you're doing, and then you work back from that and saying, do I like, am I going to present myself in this sort of way or that way,
Right.
to get to my goal? And really, like, yeah, you don't need to show every part of your soul. Like,
Right.
you don't, as people say, you don't need to post your breakfast and stuff on Twitter. Nobody cares. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, same with, if I was to make an artwork, I don't show you the whole process. Like,
Right.
I don't like, which it could be interesting for some people, but for other people it'd be like, I now like the artwork less, like, because I
Yeah.
know so much about, and maybe it was just too much information. And
Mm.
so I think there's like, the main thing I think is you just gotta be honest with yourself, and that's the
Right.
hardest part. If you feel like you're lying to people,
Right.
then that's the issue. But if you
Right.
feel like, you're just trying to present yourself in a different way, so it becomes a smoother experience for people, like, that you're just cutting out some information, or you're just like, maybe you only post when you're happy, like, so
Hmm.
it seems like you're always happy, then hey
Yeah.
man, like, people don't need to know that you get angry or whatever. Like, and it's just because, and I'm thinking more in a business goal of like building up an art
Right.
collection and stuff. Is like, if I'm the artwork as well as the actual artworks, then I can present myself in heaps of different ways. And people do this to extremes too, where like
Right.
there was a goblin town, where they were pretending to be goblins. We all know they're not goblins, like, but it's that idea of like, that's still authentically them, like,
Right.
because they're playful and they're mucking around, but we know it's not really them.
Right.
And that's where that online persona is a persona. It's not you. Like,
Yeah.
that's where you could still come back to that conversation before of like, it's a blurry line. Like, it is you as well. Like, and
Yeah. I,
but and so I think my test is, if I'm looking at it and I feel like it's bad, like if I feel like I'm hurting people because of that, then I shouldn't do that basically. It
Right.
doesn't mean that it's not me and it's not authentic. I just think maybe that, like, I could do things better. And
Yeah.
if you're feeling that you can do things better, probably look into that. Like, that's the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah. I love that viewpoint. I like that take on it. It's fresh for me as well. And yeah, there is something to be said about even if you are trying to present a certain persona online, in a way it's authentic because that's who you feel you are. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's interesting to think about it in
Yeah,
this way.
yeah. Because and it depends on, like, your, if you think you're lying, really. Like,
Yeah.
if yeah, like, if everybody's like, "Oi, bro, that's really not you," like,
Yeah.
and people are seeing it negatively, then that's a negative thing and you gotta deal with it. But if everybody's like, "Wow, that's really not you," but that
Hmm.
person's mad, then it's like, is it, should you stop doing that if it's not authentically you? I think
Hmm.
that, though, the question, though, that why you ask this is because people view authenticity as valuable. And
Hmm.
so that's why it's an important question. And being unauthentic, people like disrespect that. And
Hmm.
so I think that seeing the value of authenticity is the important part, and
Hmm.
trying to tap into why people like that and presenting yourself that way is the important reason for
Right.
questioning this sort of stuff. Because you know, like, there'd be sociopaths out there that wouldn't care about how people think about them, and they might proceed like push. Maybe sociopath's the wrong word. I can't remember. But like,
Yeah.
they'll present themselves in whatever way works,
Right.
and they won't care internally about if it's disingenuous, because it's actually more the end goal. And, for some people, they'd rather be authentic because it just makes sense, and they know that it's, good and it's a valuable sort of thing to be
Yeah.
authentic, and so then they should be doing that. They should live true to themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, because at the end of the day, like, as you get older and older, like, you might look back at it, and if you were authentic that whole time, you'll be like, "Yeah, there's nothing I would have wanted to change there," you know?
Right.
That's like that's what I think people should consider, I guess, a little bit, is like, if you were, you know, a bit older, would you be happy with how you're acting now? Like, but I think a really important part of that is is remembering what your end goal was too,
Right.
because it's real easy to be like, "Oh, I should have done this better. It's better for morals or whatever." But it's like, no, at that time you were just trying to make money. You didn't care where it was coming from. Like, you were just
Yeah.
trying to make bank, and you would have lied and cheated or whatever, like, so it's like you gotta remember where your head was at when you were doing those things.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, because people in poverty will do whatever. And
Yeah.
like, being authentic is an afterthought. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also such a big like fear of rejection sometimes,
yeah.
if I present this way, then people won't like me anymore or something. So they try to fit into that mold.
Well, I
Um,
think, yeah, too, with that is that I think a lot of people take it really seriously from the get-go when they're, say, starting an art business or whatever. Like, because with art, you can really express your emotions. And
yeah.
I think, like, and I hope that I'm not going too long as well with
Oh
talking.
no, no, you're
Oh,
good.
okay.
I was
Um,
just thinking the same. I'm hoping I'm not keeping you too long.
no, 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 no. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think when you're starting off and you've maybe got 50 or 100 followers and stuff,
Right.
like, and speaking your whole heart and everything, and then you think, oh, have I spoke too much? And it's like, bro, there was like 5 people that just heard what you said. Like, they're not gonna care. Like, message them
Yeah.
and ask them if it was too much. It's like,
Yeah.
and
Huh.
that's the beauty of being a small business. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when I was learning about business, my teacher was saying that big businesses, it can be harder for them to really pivot like a small business can.
Right.
Like, they've got all their rules and regulations. They're probably gonna make a good amount of money because they've got a whole lot of people that can back everything that they do. But,
Right.
but for an artist, like, or a small business, they can completely change how they do things in like an hour. They don't need to check with
Yeah.
anybody and tick everything off. Like,
Mm.
it's like if I had a team, I see some of the teams in the NFT collections, and they are slow to move. Like,
Right.
they still have success and stuff because they've got a lot of people thinking, but like, I've helped people and then it takes them a month or 2 to release the stuff, where,
Hmm.
like, I would be doing it that same day, like,
Yeah.
because I don't need
Yeah.
to check in with anybody, like, and where, like, say, like, a cake shop might be like, "Hey, we're not selling cakes anymore. Maybe we'll change to selling skates." And,
Yeah.
like, if it's a small business, they'll be like, "Yep, we got a week of figuring this stuff out." Where
Yeah.
if it was like if Louis Vuitton had to change from, like, clothing to televisions, that's a big change. Like, there's a
Right.
lot of things that need to happen, like all the shareholders, all of the stuff like that. And that's the beauty of being a small business is how fast you can change, and I think it should be taken advantage of heaps.
Right.
Like, doing market research every day by, like, testing the waters just a little bit, 'cause we don't have the money to be getting all these marketers and stuff in, and so we should be
Hmm.
really taking advantage and pushing it, and we're the types of businesses and people that end up influencing the big stuff because
Yep.
we can experiment, we can, like, lose a bit of money, we can, like, lose some followers and stuff, but in the long run, like, we're making the leaps and bounds that eventually will become the norm. And,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's where yeah, man, like, that's why I think, yeah, talking about being authentic and stuff is, you're probably a whole lot smaller than what you think you are. Like, a whole lot, and so, making those kind of mistakes, like, if you made a mistake, you can make a post the next day saying, "Hey, I made a mistake. Sorry,
Right.
everybody."
Yeah.
And everybody would probably be like, "Yeah, that's authentic. That's like, we respect that," like, we
Hmm.
wanna see that you're listening to what we say.
Yeah.
Where, a business, a big company will have to do, like, weeks of thinking, "What are the perfect words?" and stuff, like,
Oh, geez. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I reckon early on, test out, bawl your heart out, or like, or don't, and just but like, message people and ask,
Hmm.
saying, "Hey, like, what are you liking about my stuff?" And like,
Yeah.
if you're wanting to be like a genuine person, make genuine connections, because that's, I
Yeah.
think, what the actual goal is the connection part.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and once that's there, like once you have the people that you can ask, then now you've got a small sample group that you can always check in on and be like, "Hey guys, I'm kind of thinking of doing this," and then they'll be like, "No, that's dumb. Don't do that." Or
Yeah.
they'll be like, "Yeah, definitely, that sounds great." And
Yeah.
sometimes you already know too what it is, but sometimes you just need to hear someone else.
Yep.
And when you're small, that's when you got to ask all the questions.
Yeah.
Then they'll just lead you on the right path. Like, and
Yeah.
but that's the hard thing, I think, too, as an artist or like project early on, is feeling confident to ask those questions, but also finding the actual right target market for that.
Hmm.
Um, and that's where, yeah, like, I've been doing art and for years, and probably I've been doing art as a business for maybe 5 years or something now. And man, like, those first few years, you're not making anything. Like, it's like, unless you're lucky and maybe you've got a mentor or maybe you've got a good business plan, like, but because I was doing it about the art first,
Yeah.
it's not, it's the art. It's like, you're not going to be selling them because the value comes from your name.
Yeah.
If you're really thinking of it, if we're going casino style, like, people are trying to buy it in the hopes that long term I'm gonna have a better name for myself and I
Hmm.
have more demand. Like,
Right.
and so it's the long casino bet. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the sort of thing where, and that's where I think I try and be genuine because there's trust in that. Being
Right.
authentic builds trust. And like, even if I'm doing the wrong things, people are seeing progress. And that's
Right.
what I think people would rather see rather than a perfect run. Like,
Right.
because it's more interesting then too. You're
Oh
like,
yeah.
remember when Dale was shit? Like, and like, yeah.
I don't think I ever had that with yours.
You obviously haven't gone back far enough. But my Instagram, you can like, I always sort of loved art, but it's like that
Yeah.
where they remember when I was like making experiments and they see the progress.
Yeah.
And that's when you see the human side of things. And
Hmm.
that's like the authentic sort of stuff where like, that's what businesses don't have, and they've tried to. Like, you see
Yeah.
the Wendy's Twitter posts where you see it's come from a human and people love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, like, then it's like that Steve Buscemi gif. It's like, "Hello, how do you do, fellow kids?" Like,
Yeah.
it's like you're trying too hard
Yeah.
to be it, and, like, as soon as it goes over the top, people are like, "Oh god, I hate it now." Like,
Yeah.
but when it's just a little bit, it's just like, "Hey, guys, like, I'm a human." Um,
Mm.
and you never know that balance until you cross over it. Like,
Yeah.
the good thing
Hmm.
though is that we can cross over it hundreds of times and we won't get much rubbish.
Yeah.
Like, and so we can, yeah, cross it heaps, and then we're like, "Yep, I know now."
Yeah.
Like, like
Yeah. I
heaps,
know the
like,
limit now.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing though that big business, haven't had much time to do,
Yeah.
like because social media probably came up after they were big. And
Hmm.
so now they've got to take all these risks. And one like, and that's where there's the real corporate sort of stuff. That's where I think like a lot of NFT collections have sort of, or sometimes like marketplaces even too, where they've been a bit too personal, like in sharing their
Hmm.
opinions. And I reckon you got to be conservative as anything. Like, talk if you're gonna talk like a human, be a genuine person. And but if you're talking like a human, people probably might not like you too. Like,
Yeah.
just because you're being genuine doesn't mean that everybody's gonna like
No.
you. Like,
100%.
yeah, and if you're not sure, be conservative as hell. Like, talk like a robot and just share your stuff. Like, because that's a good chance of success.
Yeah.
Like, if you're starting to throw your being genuine in there, yeah, maybe you're gonna ruin yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's funny. It's like when you go on and the joke about people, oh man, bananas are my favorite food, and someone's gonna comment like, what about apples? I can't
yeah,
believe you would have mentioned apples in
yeah,
here.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And yeah, man, like, but yeah, over time though, like, you develop your own little rules and stuff. It's like the rules, like, never talk bad about
Mhm.
anybody, and if you're talking bad, back up saying that it's just your thoughts, like, because you have to have a reason for it. If you're gonna talk bad about it, it's because maybe you expected more of them, like, you
Yeah,
wish they did better, but
right.
also it's, like, trying to be, like, crystal clear about saying you don't know what you're talking about really, you're just trying to have an opinion, like,
Yeah, yeah,
where people get strict, they're like, "I think it's bad because of this." And I know because I'm this person. And it's like, no, you're not. You're just a dude. Like, this makes me think less of you now. Like, and
yeah,
it's stuff like that. Like, and for me, it's like, I try to never really do any, like, of the, how there was a lot of the stuff about Ukraine and
yeah.
everything, about people were making stuff like that.
Mm,
I try and avoid all that
mhm.
because as much as it might earn respect in certain ways, I never know the story well enough to feel like I should do it. Like,
Yeah,
for a very specific sort of thing like that, or even like COVID and everything too. It's like I feel like all those sort of things personally I'm going to avoid because I just don't know enough about it, and I don't wanna put my foot in it,
guess that's
and yeah, and
that's
I
part of
see, like,
authenticity right there.
yeah,
People just want to jump on a cause that they don't necessarily know about. Oh, because I should be doing everyone else's. Well, it's
yeah,
okay to not have an opinion sometimes.
yeah, and I see it too with, when people do the PFP stuff or whatever, the NFTs, and they're using, pop culture
Yeah,
references,
yeah,
and I'm like, oh, that light's coming in there. I'm, like, thinking, like, why risk it to get close to that where it's like if you're an artist, it makes up something cool. Like it
Yeah.
always makes me feel like they're piggybacking onto that to add
Yeah.
value. It's like I get it if you like making it and people are liking that sort of stuff, but for me, it's like in terms of copyright, it's like why even get close to that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's just me. Like, that some of them have had good success with it and all that, but it's just like I would rather feel so much better knowing that it was all my work, even though I know
Exactly.
I'm using like people's 3D models and stuff now and then, but I'm trying to make them my own and stuff and that's something I had to wrap my
Yeah.
head around too of like, at what point is it my artwork, you know? Like,
Yeah. And
and
I
that's
think
where,
it's like leaning on it too much. Like some of those pop
yeah,
cultures, like, okay, maybe at one or two, but then you see that they'll have success in like the next like 20 pieces or like pop culture. And like, what happened to your art, man?
yeah, exactly, yeah, because yeah, if the value of it comes from being, a Superman or whatever, then I think, yeah, it's not like just a funny take. It's like now that's the heart of the project. And that's
Hmm.
where I was gonna do a PFP collection using the 3D models, and I realized that I was just taking photos of their faces. And like, yeah, I was
Hmm.
lighting it cool and everything, but the heart of it was someone else's artwork, basically. And
Yeah.
then I thought, that's not
Yeah.
right.
I remember that. And I loved it because it's like, okay, I was gonna do this. I realized it wasn't, really me. And I came back and you change
Yeah.
it. You learn from it.
Yeah, because it's like you don't know what you value, like what works and what your values are and stuff until you do them. And then
Right.
sometimes they just slip through. Like they get far enough where it's public and you're about to do it all, and then you're like, oh wait, no. Like,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're so far into it where you're like, "Ugh," like I'm gonna maybe just sort of pursue this now a little bit and just ignore the fact like that
Yeah.
maybe it was a bit too close to that. But yeah, like like that's why having a community to talk to and check in with is good.
Yeah.
But even sometimes they don't know. And
Right.
that's where it's
Yeah.
just like having a chat about it and saying, all right, if we're all going into this thinking maybe it's gonna not work, like you could all go into that saying, yeah, we're gonna make it clear that this is how we were thinking when we started. Or like you can do that thing that I was sort of saying before about the chance of success, where it's like, do we want to risk it then? Maybe no, let's just find something else then. Like,
Right.
as cool as that idea is, maybe it's someone else's idea to pursue.
Right.
And like they might just know a person, like they might know a lawyer that can explain it all perfect to them. We'll leave it
Yeah.
to them. Like,
Yeah.
it's not our story to tell, sort of thing.
Right.
But yeah,
That's so true. Yeah.
but
I
yeah,
love it.
man. Yeah.
Man, this has been great. I know I kept you longer than I said I would, but
No, it doesn't matter, bro. It's all
yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great stuff. Great stuff on here. I mean, I just love talking about art when I get a chance. You're the first episode with a non-classmate of mine.
Yeah,
So this
right.
has been
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, yeah. So well, usually all right, just screw it, just go into usually I like to have one last thing of like a mental skill or something or like a tip of the trade. So I guess what I'll ask you anyway is like
Yeah.
before you do your art, do you have any type of like what I would call like a pre-performance routine? Is there some
Oh
kind of
man,
ritual or something you go
this is
through?
something I've been refining for years. Like, I think the most like the headspace that I try and get into is it's I need to have the time. I need to be aware that I have the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I need to have a clear enough mind. And the mind part is the huge part where I like, but I also need energy too. So I need
Right.
to maybe have eaten to have a clear mind and stuff too.
Right.
Like,
Right.
maybe feeling good, like maybe I've had a shower or whatever, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
clean and I feel like satisfied that I've done everything else.
Right.
Um, but the headspace is the huge part where it's like, I need to know why I'm creating it. Um, and that can be the I want to like it becomes then not logic anymore. It's a sensory
Right.
thing
Feeling.
where I got to feel ready and I can't be too fast. I can't be too slow either. Um, and it gets to the point where you just allow like it to build in front of you, like
Right.
that you're just a vessel for this to exist now. Like the world is creating it.
Right.
Um, I think that being in tune with my body, where like it feels ready, like
Right.
because if you were to force out an artwork, it looks forced. And if you were too slow with it, it'll probably never get done because you'll always be judging it and
Right.
what. And so I think finding that rhythm internally where that then has become something that I try and embed into all of my life. Like it
Mm-hmm.
becomes like that sort of zen-like tranquil state where it's always going to be changing a little bit, and I need to know what influences it. And I think the major part of it, especially when I'm creating art, is my values and my expectations. And so
Right.
that's why I've been really trying to unravel what my collection is, what I am as an artist, how I create art, and I think too that the last major part is focusing my eyes, like
Mm.
so focusing on if I look too big at the picture, if I'm like looking at it from too far away, then the artwork stays simple. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I can make a complete piece, but there's not enough going on. And but if I look too fine into the details, then the picture tends to be really hard to compose. And
Right.
so it's like trying to look at it from a perfect focus, um, and also having a bit of a plan and expecting it to be something like, for me, it's like making it detailed, making it maybe a bit psychedelic or whatever, like knowing what I'm wanting to throw in there, but not being too strict on what it is because I'm a bit more of a
Mm.
spontaneous artist. So I
Right.
want it to speak to me over time. And
Mm.
I think that once I've gotten like my body to be right, I feel like, yeah, this is like a good space to create in and stuff. And then like my eyes, like I feel mentally prepared that I'm gonna make a certain type of artwork and it's gonna have a certain detail. Like I need to keep like my head in the right spot where it's gonna have that detail that I want. And the best
Mm.
thing that I can do for that is to look at my past artworks and look at other artworks that are inspiring me
Right.
because they it's like what would it be similar to? It's like if you were to make a song, um you wouldn't want to sit in silence for the whole day.
Right.
Like, maybe you could because that's cool inspiration or whatever, but most of the time you're probably gonna listen to a song and be like, "Yeah, I kinda want something maybe like that. Like, that sounds
Right.
right." Like, and so then you got a baseline, and that's, I think, hugely important for artists or any kind of business or whatever is to, like, before you've made something, maybe, like, it could be a day before or, like, even an hour before, is looking at something that's kinda like what you want to do.
Right.
And because then it's not like so much maybe looking at all the details like the visual or the composition, but the feeling that you got when you were listening to it. So that you
Mm-hmm.
can try and create that feeling when you're looking at it again, like your artwork.
Yeah.
And then over time you'll practice because the energy won't be the same ever. Like
Right. Yeah.
especially as your skills are rubbish. Like, when you start drawing, you're like, want to draw some crazy dragon and it looks like, a stick figure or whatever. But it's
Yeah.
like attempting that, like
Right.
trying to get something else to make that same feeling.
Right.
And the artwork will always look completely different unless you're just copying it.
Mm-hmm.
But the energy might be the same.
Mm.
And so it's trying to figure out what is it about that piece that gave you that energy. And then you just put
Right.
it into the new piece. So and so I think using like and trying to create the energy inside of you
Right.
before you create is really important. But it's so hard to get right because
Yeah.
there's so many little things that are in there, and
Right.
that's where, it's the values and, what like and just what you feel and being aware of that and creating a feeling is just hard to do. You gotta, like, analyze it, but
Yeah.
But the simplest part though is like to not think about it too much too. Like you should, it's like with I guess thinking about death. You should think about it, but you shouldn't be thinking about it all the time. Like,
Right.
and I think like with it is you can prepare yourself and all that, but then you have to just let go of it all. Like
Right.
and be like, here, I'm like right here, right now. I'm gonna put a tree in just there and then build from that.
Right.
And I think that's the really important part of when you start creating it is being really precise with the first few things that you put in because everything will grow from those things.
Mm.
You might end up removing those, but they
Mm.
become like a placeholder. Like um, when I teach kids how to draw, they look at the white page and they don't know what they're doing. And I say, don't even think, just put a line on there. It doesn't matter what it even looks like. Because as soon as they put the line on there, you get a sense of how thick the line is, how dark it is, how it felt to put it on there. And then you start a new drawing and then you build from that.
Mm.
Um, and if you when you start that new drawing, you're using that old line as the baseline. You
Right.
build from that. Because if you have something rubbish, like it's like if you were to instead of using the same pencil, you used a crayon for that line and then you change to a pencil, it wouldn't work. Like it doesn't make sense, like you're
Yeah.
gonna feel like a crayon. Like, and so that's why I think it's really important those first few steps. Like
Mm.
as Stephen King said, like he tries to not write down too many notes, because then you've made that solid. Like only try and write down the best stuff, like
Yeah.
and keep that around, because the good stuff will stay in your head. That's the stuff you want to write down.
Mm.
Um, and that's where, yeah, when you're making the artwork or music or whatever, the thing that you latch onto and put in there should be like the heart of it as much as you can, like or whatever,
Mm.
like it depends on how you create, but knowing that you got to know the heart first. And
Right.
every time I dance around it when I don't know what the heart is, the
Mm-hmm.
artwork always looks a bit different. It looks like it is missing something in the middle, like
Mm.
its focal point.
Wow.
Um, and that's where like looking at other artworks is really important because you get inspired, and
Right.
when you're inspired, that's always the heart of it.
Mm.
Like because you're like, yeah, I love that sound or I love that sort of picture there. I'm gonna make something kind of like that. And then that should be the first major movement in creating. This is like putting that in there first so that you
Right.
can kind of look at it and say, oh yeah, it's kind of got these sort of traits actually, like maybe it's like got a more red or green vibe or something, and then you're like, yeah,
Right.
let's lean into that a bit more then.
Mm-hmm.
um that's why I think that part's really important first, is
Right.
like your first movements that they crystallize, because before it's a thought, and the thought will change all the time, like it's not solid.
Uh once
Yeah,
you put it in, it's like it's almost like saying a word and defining it like we mentioned. Now it's
yeah, yeah. Well, it's like I was thinking about this just the other day of like I can say a color in an animal, and
mm,
I can let you think about all these different colors and animals, right? And none of them exist. Really, they're not crystal. They're not in this world yet. But once I say pink elephant, it is now like it that changes completely, like it explodes into the world. Like even
yeah,
though it feels small, like it's still a small thing, but that now is the thing that we all center around.
right.
And so that's why it's so important those first few things. And I'm still trying to figure out and tap into it, like figuring out my process. Um, but being precise with the things I add to it, not just throwing it all in really quick. Like,
Hmm.
and then the other major part though is maintaining that headspace over the whole creative process, which I
Yeah,
think is so important. Early on for artists is to, rather than make big pieces, is make heaps of small ones and make
right.
heaps of them finished, because you need to get the sense of a finished artwork heaps and heaps and heaps of times. And then once you've gotten that, then you can make it slightly bigger and grow and grow.
Hmm.
Because like then you have all your rules and all your tools and everything set. You're like, yeah, I know what makes a finished artwork.
Right.
Um, Now I'm just doing it on a bigger scale, doing it a bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, and then by doing it for smaller times, you don't lose your energy as quickly. Like
Yeah.
you don't lose your train of thought and stuff. That's why speed drawing or whatever is really good because you like at the end of it you want to do more. Like you want to do a second one. And then I always find when I do the second and third ones, that's when it drops off and that's when my quality checking and everything drops off, my inspirations and everything too.
Hmm.
And so I feel like you should be like, before you do the artwork, the ideal headspace is to really want to do it and not allow yourself to do it for a long period of time. Because
Hmm.
then when you go there and you do it, you put your heart and soul into it completely.
Right.
Because you've been wanting to do it for so long. You've had all these ideas, and then like you do it and you have enough time to do it, maintaining that passion so much.
Right.
Um, and you've thought about every little thing. Like you're not making it up as you go along. Like you will always make it up as you go along a little bit, but you've thought about every little corner that was in there, everything that you felt like you had to have in there. And
Hmm.
then once you see it, like you'll probably take out some of that stuff, but like that you were thinking about, but the heart of it was there and you had to get it out. And
Right.
that's where the difference with artwork sometimes is you can see the ones that people were trying to churn out, then the ones that people had to make. Like, and the ideal state is always feeling like you have to make that piece to see it.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean that it's going to be a good artwork at the end of the day,
Yeah.
but being in that state, that's the ideal state because then it has value. Like
Right.
you don't need to explain to anybody why it has value. It's just like I needed to see that in my life.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to make that. And then other people will probably see that through your movements, especially
Right.
the better you get as an artist, because you get clearer artworks and you can express yourself more clearly.
Right.
Um and so that's where I think, yeah, it's like teasing yourself a bit. Like saying, hey, you wanna make something mad? All right, don't. You can't do it for another 2 days.
No.
So then
Oh
you're just
man.
thinking about it that whole time, and then when you get there, it
It's just
becomes the experience, like explosion. You're like, yes, I get to now, and
yeah.
especially plan that time of saying, yep, I'm gonna do it now, and then
Right.
you get it, man. Like that's the state, man. It's
Yeah.
hard, especially though with content creation these days on Twitter and social media. They're saying you got to make more content. You got to keep posting it. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to think, how do I do that then on a shorter scale?
Yeah. Because you
Yeah,
because you can't always get into the headspace you mentioned. You just
yeah,
some days you can manipulate it and do certain things to get yourself there, and some days it just doesn't work.
yeah. That's where I think like music and looking at inspiration is huge.
Right.
Like it's like smashing inspiration into your skull. You're just like, yeah, awesome, let's do it all. And then like as long as you respect the process as well afterwards, then like you should consistently kill it pretty much.
Right.
Like being inspired and then having the energy to pull it off. And like knowing like because you've done it so many times, like you have a high level of like quality assurance and stuff, then
Yeah.
yeah, you should consistently smash it.
Yeah.
And knowing as well that finishing the artwork doesn't mean it's finished. Like for
Right.
me, minting the NFT and making a post about it on Twitter, that's then the finished artwork.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's something that I think is easy to forget too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
true. Awesome.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
This been a super great conversation. Yeah, I love it. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I got for this time. I'll give you a little chance to tell us where you could find you, promote yourself. It's your time to plug.
All right. So my Twitter's dfart2287. So or dfart.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
And my website's dalforward.com. I don't know. That's the main sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I mostly use Twitter,
Yeah.
and like all my NFTs and websites are linked from there. I'm sure
Yeah.
you'll put a link in the description or
Oh
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely link in the
So yeah.
description. All that good stuff. You can even get this cool like
Yeah.
T-Rex
Yeah.
laser beam shirt, super
Yeah.
cool. If you're not into the NFTs, you got physical merch too on there and such.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got some tarot cards. I've got books and shirts. I've got books from other artists as well. I've also got my YouTube, which is all linked up through there.
Hmm.
Where I've made some like videos and done some interviews. Lots of different weird things.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
interviewed as a Wizard King, a couple
Yeah,
Wizard
yeah.
King interviews on that one. That was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, there's heaps of fun stuff. So yeah, that's me. Well, like, thanks for having me, man. Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah. Cheers for coming on. Thanks. And we'll see everyone next time.